Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 people who survived the impossible.
Was the story of the marvelous man true? If so, how in the world did he manage to escape?
For this list, we'll be looking at people who survived unimaginably terrifying and seemingly fatal events. Which of these stories do you find the most insane? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10. Aron Ralston. Nowadays, everyone knows about Ralston's incredible story through Danny Boyle's 127 Hours. In April of 2003, Ralston was hiking alone in Utah's Blue John Canyon when a horrible accident left his arm pinned by an 800-pound boulder. Ralston spent 5 days inside the cramped slot canyon and fully believed that he would die. By the end of the 5th day, he had videotaped goodbye messages for his family and carved his name, date of birth, and estimated date of death into the wall.
My name's Aron Ralston. My parents are down on Larry Ralston of Englewood, Colorado. Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them. Be sure of it. I would appreciate it.
Following a hallucination in which he saw himself with a young child, Ralston did the impossible and amputated his own arm with a cheap multi-tool. It's a thrilling survival story, a brilliant showcase of both human ingenuity and perseverance.
There will never be a more powerful experience for me. It was absolutely the greatest feeling to be given the chance to get out of here.
Number 9. Chris Gursky.
3, 2, 1, go. Run.
If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's this. Remember to do your pull-ups. While vacationing in Switzerland, Chris Gursky decided to do a little hang gliding. Unfortunately, the pilot forgot to attach the safety harness, and Gursky was quite literally forced to hang on for dear life. For over 2 minutes, Gursky was left dangling from the hang glider hundreds of feet above the ground, his grip strength being the only thing saving him from the trees below.
I was slipping slowly with my right hand from his neck all the way down to the bottom of his leg. My left hand, I locked onto that bar and I wasn't letting go.
Luckily, Gursky made it back down alive, though he did break his wrist in the rough landing. The terrifying ordeal didn't scare Gursky away from hang gliding, and he never pursued legal action against the company, calling the pilot a pretty stand-up guy.
If I had the chance to fly with him again, I would.
Number 8. Mauro Prosperi. In 1994, an Italian pentathlete, Mauro Prosperi, decided to participate in the Marathon des Sables, an ultramarathon spanning over 150 miles of the Sahara Desert. 4 days into the race, Prosperi got lost in a violent sandstorm and eventually took shelter inside an abandoned shrine.
Intanto inerme. I'm kidding myself against similar conditions tomorrow! So disorienting!
While there, he hydrated himself by sucking on wet wipes and drinking blood from the bats he managed to catch and kill. He later attempted to end his own life, but this failed, and he continued searching for rescue.
Nel coprirmi, mi è uscita la fede è scivolata, è andata in mezzo alle dune. E a quel punto ho detto, caspita, all'inizio ho detto, evidentemente è il mio destino, anche la fede l'ho persa.
Prosperi eventually came across goat droppings in the desert and followed them to a local camp populated by Tuareg nomads. He was then taken to the hospital, having survived a week and a half alone in the barren desert.
E lì i 9 giorni è come se fossero stati quei 9 giorni lì che io ero dentro la pancia del deserto e poi sono rinato.
Number 7. Ludgir Silbury.
30,000 dead, 1 man alive. How?
Known as the Paris of the Caribbean, Saint-Pierre, Martinique was decimated by the eruption of Mount Pelée in 1902. A pyroclastic flow struck at 8:02 a.m. on May 8th, destroying the entire city and leaving very few survivors. One was Ludgir Silbury. The night before the eruption, Silbury was thrown in jail after a physical altercation. He was placed in a cell, which just so happened to be the safest location in the city thanks to its stone walls, poor ventilation, and underground location.
The cell he was in had been built as an armory, as a place to store ammunition. So it had been built with incredibly thick walls, and it so happened that the only openings in it faced away from the eruption.
Silvari survived the flow, but was badly burned from the hot air entering through a small grate. He later toured with Barnum and Bailey's circus, being touted as the man who lived through doomsday.
How could an eruption kill a town's entire population save one? No volcano in history had ever been so thorough in its devastation, and yet so selective.
Number 6. Vesna Vulovic. Many people are afraid of heights, but this takes things to a whole other level. Vesna Vulovic was working as a flight attendant when JAT Flight 367 was bombed over Germany in 1972. Everyone else on board was blown out of the aircraft from depressurization. But Vulovic proved incredibly lucky when she was pinned in the fuselage by a food cart. She then rode the fuselage 33,000 feet to the ground, where its impact was cushioned by tall trees and deep snow. Her injuries were extensive, but Vulovic survived after being found by a local villager. She suffered amnesia and was briefly paralyzed from the waist down, but Vulovic eventually recovered, albeit with a twisted spine and a limp. Number 5. Anna Bagenholm. On May 20th, 1999, Anna Bagenholm was skiing with work colleagues when she fell into a frozen river, trapping her head and torso under roughly 8 inches of ice.
Anna was trapped hopelessly beneath the ice and was slowly but surely freezing to death.
Bagenholm's colleagues attempted to free her to no avail. Luckily, Bagenholm was able to find an air pocket, but 40 minutes in the freezing water led to cardiac arrest. She was eventually freed by a rescue team and taken to the hospital with a body temperature of 56.7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the lowest ever recorded in a case of accidental hypothermia.
Even though Anna looked dead, the doctors knew that the hypothermia, the very thing that had stopped her heart, might also have preserved her brain.
Bagenholm began showing signs of life following extensive surgery and later spent months recuperating in the hospital. She has since made a full recovery, minus some nerve damage in her hands and feet.
So now I'm back to work as a normal doctor. I do exactly the same things as everybody else.
And you're out skiing,
Yeah,
I understand,
cool,
so doing everything you were before.
Yeah, I take a bit more care.
Number 4. Harrison Okene. A Nigerian chef, Harrison Okene, was working on a tugboat as it was stabilizing an oil tanker in the Atlantic Ocean.
Found one, yeah? He's alive, he's alive.
Unfortunately, the boat encountered some violent waves and capsized, sending it 100 feet to the ocean floor. While most of the crew perished in the accident, Okene was left alive and made his way to the engineer's office in complete darkness.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. It's beyond belief.
How did this guy survive for 60 hours underwater?
The office was about 4 feet in height and contained an air pocket that allowed Okene to breathe. He then fashioned a makeshift buoy out of a mattress and remained in the pitch-black air pocket for over 60 hours. He was eventually rescued by a team of divers who had been sent to retrieve the bodies. Imagine their surprise.
Divers gave him an oxygen mask and put him in a diving bell to get him to 30 meters to the surface. He was the only survivor from the 12-member crew.
Number 3, the miracle of the Andes survivors. One of the most spectacular survival stories of all time, this event has been immortalized in both literature and film.
Jesus!
On Friday, October 13th, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 crashed into the Andes, leaving 34 survivors stranded on a freezing mountain. Over the next 72 days, the survivors faced countless hardships.
To stay alive, the survivors huddled together inside the plane's fuselage, sharing their body heat. At 4,000 meters, temperatures outside can drop as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius at night. Their only hope is to be rescued.
Many suffered from exposure and critical injuries sustained in the crash, and a fatal avalanche struck the area 17 days after the accident. All suffered from debilitating hunger, resulting in the unthinkable becoming reality.
No. They're dead?
Without the hope of rescue, 2 survivors climbed a 15,000-foot peak without any climbing gear and hiked their way into Chile, where they eventually found help. Of the 34 initial survivors, only 16 made it home. Number 2, Louis Zamperini and Russell Phillips. War is hell for everyone, but these men faced a particular kind of hell. While conducting a rescue mission south of Oahu, their B-24 experienced mechanical failure and crashed into the ocean. Of the 11 people on board, only 3 survived.
They were now floating in the middle of 65 million square miles of water.
While aboard the life raft, the men had to contend with hunger and dehydration, shark attacks, dangerous storms, and even Japanese bombers attempting to shoot them. They subsisted on rainwater and fish. The third man, Francis McNamara, eventually died, but Zamperini and Phillips made it to the Marshall Islands after 47 days at sea.
I got good news. And bad news.
However, they were caught by the Japanese and held as prisoners of war, during which time they were frequently beaten. Against all odds, they survived and were released once the war was concluded. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Anatoly Bergorsky, the Russian physicist, survived a 300,000 Roentgen proton beam to the head. Violet Jessup, aka Miss Unsinkable. This stewardess survived 2 sinkings, including the Titanic. Ralph Flores and Helen Clavin. Both survived 49 days in northern Canada following a plane crash. Roy Sullivan, the American park ranger, survived 7 lightning strikes.
So I guess Roy'd be forgiven for holding a grudge against Mother Nature. But what's your excuse, friend?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Tsutomu Yamaguchi.
I have walked and crawled through the bottom of hell. I should be dead, but it was my fate to keep on living.
A Japanese marine engineer, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on business when the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the city on August 6, 1945.
Solid matter began to come apart, releasing untold quantities of energy.
Yamaguchi witnessed the explosion and was left temporarily blind. He also suffered from radiation burns and ruptured eardrums. Astoundingly, he returned home and reported to work 3 days later. Work and home being Nagasaki. While discussing the Hiroshima bombing with his supervisor, the U.S. bombed Nagasaki too.
The second bomb was intended for the city of Kokura, but it was too cloudy, so the plane moved on to Nagasaki. Desperately short of fuel, the crew released the bomb despite more clouds.
Unlike his experience in Hiroshima, Yamaguchi was left uninjured, despite being less than 2 miles from ground zero. Although he suffered radiation-inflicted ailments later in life, Yamaguchi lived to be 93 and passed away in 2010.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.